You put your left leg in, you put your left leg out. You do the hokey pokey and you shake it all about. Weird science. Weird science.
I love it.
Professor Bob.
Poncho Man, love that. We are presented by ES Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex, La Roca, Tanya Porter Resort, Rudy Project, Slow Twitch. Our guest from ESPN Sports Science, Mr. John Brenkus. How the heck are you?
I am outstanding. How are you doing? You look amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate that coming from a guy who I saw on TV wearing a cup with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball going after his nuts. That is the type of guy I want compliments from.
Yeah, that's right. That goes down as something not terribly well thought through.
I was going to say, because sometimes I look at these things that you're doing, I'm going, oh, my God, this is so cool. Oh, yeah, your wife's saying, get your glasses off.
Why?
Because you want to see your eyeballs, man. If you got your sponsorship, that's okay. So some of these things are when you see the wide receiver and how far can he reach and all that's awesome stuff. And then it's like, okay, I got this product that's going to cover my nuts, and I'm going to see if, what leads to that?
It's because sports science taps into the questions that everybody wants to not only ask but answer. And
I bet they don't want to answer themselves.
Right, exactly. As a man, you're always wondering, and I wonder if you can protect yourself in a better way, and that was the best thing that we could come up with. By the way, that product is amazing.
It really is.
Nutty Buddy uses that video in their promos, and I've seen. I was actually at a race where they were set up.
Yes.
And they're like looking at me. They're like, ah. I'm like, that's right. It works.
So I think one of the first times I met you was 2010. It was out here at the Ironman.
Yep.
And you decided, and I don't think you had done this race in 2007.
Yep.
I don't think you were really planning that far in advance to do this race in 2010. It became part of the show. Mac is using this hot new Shiv. I'll use this hot new Shiv, which you'd never been on before.
Correct.
Yeah, so that was all. That's also a nice test drive dummy thing, too.
You know, I had done some. I'm kind of the endurance athlete that did it on a dare.
Right.
Where you sort of dare yourself. A friend of mine, one of my best friends, ran a marathon, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. There were 25,000 people in the race. Yeah. You know, I don't know how hard it is just to complete a marathon. I mean, he was just looking to complete it, not win it. So I'm like, I'm going to do an Ironman, and this was way back. This is like 17 years ago.
You weren't an endurance guy.
I was not an endurance guy.
You were more of a ball sport guy?
I was. I played football, basketball, baseball.
Okay, all that stuff.
And ran a little track, but nothing longer than a 5K. Ran cross country. So when I started training for endurance events, I honestly didn't own a bike. I didn't know how to swim, and I'd never run more than a 5K.
Perfect.
So yeah,
you were ready.
Makes me qualified. So it was good. A quick little story is the first Ironman I did actually was the one in New Zealand.
Yes.
Because I just picked one. I was 27 at the time, and I'm like, I'm going to go to New Zealand. But I honestly didn't know how to swim. I'd never had a swimming lesson. I knew now how to not drown, and that was about it. But I swam the 2-mile race prior to the race. It was like a fun race.
Yes.
There were only like 100 people that did it. And I honestly had the thought in my mind, I'm going to die. I've never gone 2 miles. It's open water. There are no walls. I'm going to die. Then after that, I took a swim lesson just from an Olympian who was there doing a swim clinic. On the day of the race, I ended up swimming 2.4 miles in 59 minutes.
You went under an hour.
I went under an hour. First time ever going that distance in open water.
God.
So it was pretty nutty. So as it turns out, I'm okay at swimming.
And so how'd you end up in that first Ironman?
That first Ironman, I think I finished in 11:59. I think maybe it was 12, something like that.
So, but when you did the one in 2010, because we were doing a photo shoot after the race, and every part of your body was cramping on top of cramping.
Right.
How many times have you ridden that bike before? Because that's a radical position on that bike.
It is a radical, but by the time I had done it in 2010, I had gone on quite a few bike rides at that point. The first Ironman that I had done, I'd never gone that distance. I'd never gone 112 miles. I had trained the first Ironman that I did. I trained for 8 weeks. And I was in Virginia in January and February. Yeah. Snow, ice on the ground. I had never ridden that far. Yeah. So I think my first Ironman was actually just under 13 hours.
Okay.
The second Ironman I think was like 11:37 or something. Yeah.
But when you did that one in 2010 on the radical position on the bike, How far into the bike ride did you go, you know what, this was probably not a great move?
That was not. In 2010, I was probably mile 40, and I was pretty toast prior to even getting to Javi. I mean, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. It was a rough day.
Yes, 10 was a tough year.
It was a really rough day. It was a rough day for me. I wasn't in particularly good shape. I was out of my element, but I limped across the finish line and somehow made it.
And got there. Give me the genesis of sports science.
So sports science began because our production company specialized in sport programming and science programming.
Okay.
So we've been around for 23 years. Sports science is now in season 9.
Yeah.
It arose because we had a specialty, not only sport programming, but science programming. And we put those together in a show called XMA Extreme Martial Arts that was on the Discovery Channel. Tom Cruise did the raps for it. It was tied in with The Last Samurai.
Wow.
It was like a big sort of, hey, this is the biomechanics of martial arts. From the success of that, National Geographic came along and said, hey, we want you to do that, but science it up. So we made a show called Fight Science, where we brought in the world's greatest martial artists, had them punch and kick the crap out of a crashless dummy to see which style generated the most amount of force. That did very well.
The most damage.
Exactly. And that did very well in Geographic. Fox owns Geographic and Fox Sports. So Fox Sports came to us and said, we're going to air Fight Science. They aired it opposite the original Manning versus Manning Sunday Night Football game. It did really well for them. It was one of their highest rated shows of the year with no promotion. And they're like, well, what else do you have? We said, well, we're developing this thing called Sports Science. So we created Sports Science, did 2 seasons on Fox Sports, won 3 Emmys there.
Yeah.
ESPN came along, acquired the property, and we've won another 3 Emmys with them. And we've done now for ESPN, we've done over almost 1,200 segments just for ESPN.
What I love is when something happens, they'll talk about, let's talk about the curveball.
Yeah.
And they'll implement that, not so much into a standalone sports science full show, but a segment during Major League Baseball or football. I love that.
Exactly. What we are very blessed to be doing now are very quick turn segments. Because we've done so many segments, our team is very, very good at turning things around quickly because we've done so many. So we're doing segments for Monday Night Football now where we're turning it around an hour after the game. We're picking our favorite play from the game, doing a sports science segment, feeding it out, and then it runs in all the sports centers afterwards. So we're reacting very quickly now. So if a play happens, we can turn the sports science segment around in a couple hours.
So when you see the guy catches the ball, Beckham catches the ball with one hand,
right?
You can do a whole thing on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. We did a whole thing on that, and we turned it around, lickety-split.
So favorite segments that you've done over the years?
I always get asked that, but when you've done
thousands,
like I said, I mean, we've done so many segments that my favorite one is always the most recent one we've done,
right?
Just because they're all really cool, and our team that our sports science team, we just have so much fun doing them.
Yeah.
That the lasting memories are really the most recent thing that we've done. But with that being said, that we've had hundreds of the world's greatest athletes come through the lab.
How fun is that?
It is a blast. The people who impressed me the most, everyone's like, those guys are so big, so strong, so fast. But the people who impress me the most are the people who look a lot like me.
Yes.
They're just not that big.
Right.
They're average size. You wouldn't pick them out of a crowd and say that's one of the world's greatest athletes. Those are the people who really impress me. Drew Brees came in. And Drew Brees is a phenomenal athlete, but if he was just a guy standing in a crowd, you wouldn't go, "Oh, that guy's a great quarterback."
Yes,
he just doesn't.
What makes him great?
It's his focus on accuracy. It's his ability to work on his mechanics and work on his mental reps and to be able to throw the ball where he needs to be able to throw it when he needs to be able to throw it. And that sounds like an oversimplification.
No,
but a lot of people can get away with their sheer size and athleticism. Brees is an amazing athlete, but it's not like he's going to, world-class sprinter or is one of the strongest arms of all time. He's a very good athlete who's an extraordinary quarterback, one of the greatest the NFL has ever seen because of his work ethic and his ability to focus.
Well, and he has to put the ball exactly in the right spot.
And
he has to be in tune with his receiver.
Absolutely.
From all the different sports you've worked on, have there been athletes you've worked in the sports all of a sudden we've got obstacle racing, we got all sorts of different stuff.
No.
Athletes from sports you'd never heard of before who've impressed you?
Yeah, we've had everything from, we had the number one female table tennis player come in prior to the Olympics, and she was 15 years old, and I'm looking at the mechanics of this. I'm like, I cannot believe how amazing this is. The quick reactions and the quick really understanding what to do. That totally blows me away. We've done all kinds of sports, from arm wrestling to marathoning.
Yes.
To we did
You did
cornhole.
MEB. I remember
we did MEB.
MEB, and the thing with MEB that I remember was how little time he's on the ground.
Absolutely.
Right, where both feet are entirely off the ground.
Absolutely. That's like sort of the sign of the perfect gait.
Yes.
Is the amount of time that you stay in contact with the ground. That's why when you see somebody plodding along, the amount of time that they're on the ground is much longer than it needs to be.
Right.
But being able to develop that is something that doesn't just happen. That happens over thousands and thousands of hours of practice.
When I see MEB, and I see him at Fast Island like a couple times a week, he does a 20-minute to half-hour warm-up where it's meticulous.
Yep.
So that stuff doesn't just happen because, he's an effortless runner.
Absolutely. What's interesting about the endurance events is there are definitely two different schools of thought on it. There is volume, where just do as much as you can and become in amazing shape, and then there's sort of the perfect form. And there's a lot of really good studies that show, look, if you need to do a race that's going to last 9 hours, 10 hours, maybe it's better to be training on the shorter side but do it perfectly, so that your body, the mechanics are perfect and the nutrition is perfect, your mental reps are perfect. So the blasting as many miles as you can may not necessarily be the best way to do it. And a lot of the guys who are among the greatest athletes, you see people who are really good over and over and over. You'll hear them say, like, well, I actually didn't train that much for this race. I went out for some runs, but those runs they did were just perfect.
Were meticulous.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
And that's really important part to all sports.
So Chris McCormick.
Yes.
All right. Like you said, the 2 Ironman you've done here were the races he won.
Yes.
What makes him special as an athlete?
He's been doing. He was a guy that, as a child, he obviously
was a runner, amazing talent.
Exactly.
Swimmer, yeah.
So he sort of has that mentality. I think the thing that separates him when you look under the hood is really his ability to focus mentally. He's just such a, when he's feeling it, he's feeling it.
Yeah.
And that ability to focus mentally is the thing that separates almost every champion at every level.
Yeah.
Are the people who don't freak out when the stage is really big. They can stay calm, they can focus, they can do what they know they do best.
Right.
And that's a lot. That's again something that I don't know if you can teach that to somebody. It's something that's sort of part of their fiber.
With sports science, there's so much that's out there in terms of numbers and stats, but the intangibles. When you mentioned a Drew Brees, how do you measure that? What to really identify a champion?
Yep.
You have to go beyond the science.
I think honestly you can't. Yeah. I don't think you can measure the intangibles. How much heart.
I'm sure
you've
have tried.
We've tried every way possible. The truth is you cannot recreate Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Right.
You can't create that in a lab. How is somebody going to react when they're standing at a foul line to hit a game-winning shot, when the pressure is the biggest and the stage is giant? You can pretend, you can try,
yes.
But it's like saying to a Navy SEAL, I mean, how do you really train for when the
crap hits the fan?
Exactly. When the crap hits the fan, it's kind of like, that's why the weeding out process is so rigorous. For all everybody involved in special forces, they're rolling the dice on, all right, who's really going to be able to stay calm when things are at their worst. That is what a champion is when things are at the absolute worst, you're at your best. And I don't know if you can necessarily train that. You can do your best to identify that person, but I think it's something that's very difficult to test for and really to train for.
This race is special. What did you learn about yourself through the Ironman?
I loved, Chris McCormick said to me before I did my first one, he said, look, this is all about the journey. It's all about that story. Don't be obsessed with the time that you get. Really focus on the story that you're writing. And the story might be a dark tale with a happy ending. It might, and you want to try your best to make sure that ending is a happy one, that look, I'm really glad that I did this. Through this race, I mean, I really did see that I learned a lot of things. One, I'm not an endurance athlete.
You're pretty good.
I'm just not. I'm not a great endurance athlete. I'm not a great athlete at all. I'm not going to be really, really good because I can see in my mental makeup that these endurance sports, they're really hard. I'm the guy that will do it. I'm stubborn, but I don't think I'm an excellent athlete, and that's a good realization because you can say, all right, there's other stuff I can focus on. I could do this as a hobby, but I know that, look, whatever time that I'm going to get is the best that I can do with what I have when I have it, and I'm good with that. And that is something to really learn. A lot of people do these races, they finish and they're like, oh, I could do 2 hours better if I really. I'm like, I don't think I can.
That's about it.
That's about it.
Drop the mic.
Exactly.
I'm done.
I don't rate that well. I'm all right, and I'm good with that.
You're fine,
I can move on, and I can say, I'm decent at swimming, and I'm okay at bike, and I'm really not a good runner at all.
From all the different stuff you've done on sports science, have you taken any things from that and that you use for yourself?
Yeah, the thing that I use for myself is the idea of committing and the idea of incrementally getting better is really important. And even elite athletes, guys, men and women who are, you would say they're the best they possibly could be, they're never satisfied. They're always reaching out and saying, I'm going to try something tomorrow that I wasn't able to do today. And I'm going to try to just get a little better. And whatever that little bit is, it's Michael Jordan working on the fadeaway when, driving down the lane, had sort of run its course. It's like, well, I got to add something to my game. It's that idea, and it's really not only taking that idea and putting it in place in sports, but it's putting it in place in anything. So, whether it's, I love to play guitar, I love to play music. Right. So whether it's branching out, in music or in my own sort of athletic life, it's really important in every facet of your life to have that mentality.
ESPN Sports Science is obviously what you're known for. Other projects on the horizon?
We have a show on right now on the Travel Channel called Thrill Factor. That is.
Oh, is that your guys?
Yeah, it's basically it's sports science for adventuring and like adventure rides, not only amusement parks but other just crazy stuff. And there's a lot of other really good stuff that's on the horizon for us. We've done pretty much a show about the science of fill in the blank.
Right.
We've done as many things as you possibly can think of, but where there's other things that are on the horizon for us, which is, really exciting.
You going to be coming back to do this race again?
I don't know if my Ironman days are, I think they might be over. I've now sort of transitioned mountain biking. I did the Leadville 100 a couple years ago. For me, it's all about the run. I've now had 3 knee surgeries and I'm like, I don't know if I can get back to the run. The running and the swimming and biking I love. I just don't know if the run's in the cards. But there will be other stuff in the future for sure.
Love it. John Brenkus has been our guest. Watch ESPN Sports Science, one of the best shows on television. Multiple-time Emmy Award winner. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you so much.
You are the legend.
You're the best.
Again, we are presented by ES Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex, La Roca, Tanya Pura, Rudy Project, Slow Twitch, and where is our man, Poncho Man? Poncho Man is out to lunch. Hold on, everyone. We will be right back.